Good morning, everyone. Today, I am going to speak about one of the most important and glorious periods in the history of English literature, that is, the Elizabethan age. It is called the Elizabethan age because it developed mainly during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, who ruled England from 1558 to 1603. This period is often called the golden age of English literature because English literature reached a very high level during this time. The Elizabethan age was not important only for literature, it was also a period of great political, geographical, scientific, and cultural development. England became a strong and confident nation, and people became interested in learning, exploration, art, and new ideas. Historical background of the age. When Elizabeth first came to the throne in 1558, England was facing many political and religious problems. Elizabeth brought relative peace and stability to the country. She followed a moderate religious policy and tried to maintain unity among her people. One of the greatest achievements of her reign was the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588. England defeated the powerful Spanish fleet, and this victory increased English national pride. England began to feel more confident about its position in Europe. The Elizabethan period was also a time of exploration. English sailors traveled to different parts of the world. Famous explorers such as Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh became symbols of the England's adventurous spirit. Growth of education and Renaissance ideas. The Elizabethan age was strongly influenced by the Renaissance. The Renaissance means the revival of learning, art, and classical Greek and Roman culture. People become interested in human life, beauty, knowledge, individual freedom, and the power of human beings. This new spirit greatly influenced English writers. Education also expanded. The study of classical literature became popular, and writers learned from Greek and Roman authors. The works of writers such as Virgil, Ovid, Seneca, and Plutarch influenced English literature. The printing press also helped literature spread among readers. Books became more available, and the English language developed rapidly. Now, I am going to discuss the Elizabethan drama. The greatest achievement of the Elizabethan age was undoubtedly drama. Theatres became extremely popular. People from different social classes went to theatres for entertainment. The most famous theatre was the Globe Theatre, associated with William Shakespeare. Several important dramatists appeared during this period. Christopher Marlowe was one of the great early dramatists. His famous plays include Dr. Faustus, Tamburlaine the Great, and Edward II. Marlowe's heroes are usually ambitious and powerful individuals who want to achieve great things. William Shakespeare was the greatest dramatist of the Elizabethan age and perhaps the greatest dramatist in English literature. His plays include comedies, tragedies, and histories. His important tragedies include Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. His comedies include A Midsummer Night's Dream, Twelfth Night, and As You Like It. His history plays include Richard II and Henry IV. Shakespeare's greatness lies in his understanding of human nature. His characters represent different kinds of human beings, and his plays deal with universal subjects such as love, jealousy, ambition, power, betrayal, and revenge. Other important dramatists of the period include Ben Jonson, Thomas Kidd, and John Bevester, although some of them belong partly to the Jacobean period. The Elizabethan poetry. Poetry also flourished during this age. One of the most important poets was Edmund Spenser. His greatest work is The Faerie Queene, an important allegorical poem. Spenser used beautiful language and created a rich poetic style. He is often called the poet's poet because later poets admired his poetry. Another important poet was Sir Philip Sidney. His famous work include Strophel and Stella and An Apology for Poetry. Sidney was not only a poet but also a critic and courtier. William Shakespeare also made a great contribution to poetry through his 154 sonnets. His sonnets deal with love, beauty, time, and immortality. Prose literature. Prose also developed during the Elizabethan period. Writers experimented with different forms of prose. Francis Bacon was one of the most important prose writers. His essays are famous for their short, practical, and philosophical observations of human life. John Lilly wrote Euphues, which became famous for its highly decorative style, and it is known as Euphuism. The period also produced travel writing, historical writing, and religious prose, as well as translations. The main features of Elizabethan literature. There are several important features of the age. First, it shows a strong love of life. Writers celebrated beauty, youth, love, nature, adventure, and human achievements. Second, there is a strong influence of Renaissance humanism. Writers showed great interest in human personality and human abilities. Third, Elizabethan literature contains a great deal of imagination and creativity. Writers were not afraid to experiment with new forms and styles. Fourth, the literature of this age shows national pride. The defeat of the Spanish Armada and England's growing power created a strong feeling of patriotism. Fifth, Elizabethan literature contains a mixture of seriousness and entertainment, tragedy, comedy, romance, history, poetry, and prose, all developed during this period. Another important feature is the richness of language. Writers expanded the vocabulary of English and used new words, expressions, metaphors, and poetic techniques. The Elizabethan age and the English language. The English language developed rapidly during this period. Writers borrowed words from Latin, Greek, Italian, French, and other languages. Shakespeare played an especially important role in expanding the expressive power of English. His plays and poems contain thousands of memorable expressions and creative uses of language. The language of Elizabethan literature may sometimes seem difficult to modern readers, but it is also powerful, musical, and imaginative. Conclusion. To conclude, the Elizabethan age was one of the brightest periods of English literary history. It was a period of national confidence, Renaissance learning, exploration, artistic development, and literary creativity. Queen Elizabeth I provided political stability, while writers such as Shakespeare, Spenser, Marlowe, Sidney, and Bacon gave England a remarkable literary heritage. The period is rightly called the golden age of English literature, especially because of the extraordinary development of drama and poetry. Above all, the genius of William Shakespeare made the Elizabethan age unforgettable. Therefore, when we study the Elizabethan age, we are not simply studying one period of history, we are studying the period that laid the foundation for some of the greatest achievements of English literature. Thank you.